Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the People Processes Podcast. DEI is dead, or at least it sure is changing. I need to tell you about something that most employers don't know about, and it's happening right now. In February of 2026, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, sued Coca-Cola, not for discriminating against women, for discriminating against men. Coca-Cola held a two-day networking event for 250 employees at a resort in Connecticut, paid their wages, covered their hotels and meals, brought in keynote speakers and career development program, and the EEO said, that's sex discrimination. You've excluded male employees from a career benefit. In March, the EEOC settled a reverse discrimination case against Planned Parenthood over their treatment of white employees, and they've sent information request letters to law firms asking about their diversity programs. At least 4 firms settled their cases rather than fight, and that's all happened this year. The agency that used to push companies to create diversity programs is now suing companies for having them. And they don't need an employee to file a complaint to investigate you. They can initiate charges on their own. But an employee complaint, of course, kicks things off much faster. Today, I want to walk you through exactly what changed, what's now illegal, and a 5-step audit to restructure your programs before the EEOC sends you a letter. So let's talk about what changed, the enforcement flip. What happened here, because this isn't just a policy tweak, this is literally a 180-degree policy reversal. The old EEOC, for decades, encouraged diversity programs, voluntary affirmative action, mentoring programs for underrepresented groups, diversity hiring goals. They were encouraged, but not required. Employers built these programs partially because the EEOC told them to. HR conferences taught them to. Law firms recommended they do so. You build these programs in good faith, and I want to be clear about that. Most companies did this because they were told it was the right thing to do, legally and ethically. The new EEOC is different. EEOC's new chair, Lucas, has described her approach as a more conservative view of civil rights. The new position is that Title VII protects everyone. If a program gives career benefits based on race or sex, even partially, it is potentially discriminatory against whoever was excluded. So, the key phrase there is motivated even in part. Your mentoring program doesn't have to be only for women to be at risk. If being a woman gives you preference or priority, that's more than enough. This is the part that should kind of get your attention. The EEOC, now under the commissioner, has been given the authority to investigate companies without an employee complaint. They don't need a disgruntled employee to file. They can decide on their own to look at your programs. Now, for many of my listeners, you're anywhere from a 3-man to a 200-person shop. You're probably not on the radar, and I totally understand that. But that's what happened with the law firms. Nobody filed a complaint. The EEOC just sent letters asking about their diversity programs, and 4 firms settled for significant effect. It's not just the EEOC as well. I guess I should also point out the Department of Justice is coordinating on that DEI scrutiny. The National Enforcement Plan, the NEP for 2025 and to 2029, explicitly lists reverse discrimination as an enforcement priority. So this isn't going away after one news cycle. This is kind of a multi-year enforcement strategy. So let me walk you through now what's at risk. And let's go to the kind of Coca-Cola example to give you an idea of what's going on here. So it's the clearest example of where the line is now. So let's talk about those Coca-Cola facts. 250 female employees were invited to a 2-day trip to Mohegan Sun Casino and Resort, to be specific, in Connecticut. There was programming, keynote speakers, team building, career discussions, social reception. Coca-Cola excused participants from regular duties, paid them their normal wages, covered lodging, meals, and expenses. And male employees were not invited and were not offered, therefore, the same benefits. The EEOC's argument, this constitutes discrimination with respect to the terms, privileges, and conditions of employment. The legal test, it doesn't matter that the program was well-intentioned. It doesn't matter that women were underrepresented in Coca-Cola's leadership. The question is simply, did a protected characteristic determine who got access to a career benefit? Coca-Cola is fighting this. They're saying it was a good faith effort to support women in leadership, but the EEO position is clear. Good intentions don't override Title VII. So, before we dive into your company specifically, I want to take a minute. So we've done a lot of DEI over the years, and by we, I mean the HR industry and many businesses. We've put in place many programs with the idea of increasing diversity and equity and inclusion. And wherever you fall on the political spectrum, how you feel about this, I want to take a minute to say it's the law. Just like 6 years ago, I had to talk to Bubba's Tire Shop, not actually Bubba's Tire Shop. If there is a Bubba's Tire Shop out there, not talking to you. Because gender identity, gender expression, and sexual orientation became protected classes, protected characteristics. The Supreme Court case changed it all, okay? Used to be, you could discriminate because someone was gay. You could definitely discriminate because someone wanted to express their identity on the lines of gender differently than the norm, okay? The law changed. And the resistance that Bubba's Tire Shop and many organizations felt towards that was quite difficult. The decision was made, and it took 2 or 3 years for it to really become enforced, and a lot of lawsuits happened and those sorts of things. We're at that same point here. Now, I'm talking to the other side of the political spectrum. Making race-based hiring, sex-based promotions. I can't tell you the number of times in the last 10 years someone has told me, I'd like a black woman to lead this organization. How do we find one? Or something along those lines. The EEOC has determined, after a Supreme Court case that led to a lot of this, it's discriminatory. And that is now the law of the land. So if your organization is one that's on the more left side of the United States political spectrum, you've got a problem, okay? Let's go through your company and let's make sure that you can live to fight another day, okay? And follow the law of the land and work with your representatives in this democracy and representative republic to change the law as you desire to. But in the meantime, this is how you comply with the law, okay? Managing HR in-house is overwhelming. That's why we built the People Processes Advisory System. Start with our free HR resource library, get instant access to policies, guides, and compliance checklists. But templates are just the beginning. Run our Strategic HR Audit to scan all your key domains for your people processes. In just a few hours, we'll work through and identify your compliance gaps, and my team will generate a custom roadmap for you, meet with you, and show you exactly what to fix step by step, ready to execute. Use our toolkit to generate job profiles, deploy policies, track employee documents. You're not alone. You're backed by a 5-star expert team supporting over 10,000 employees nationwide. Be your team's secret weapon. Visit advisor.peopleprocesses.com to start your free account today. Let's think about your company. Do you have a women's leadership development program, a minority mentoring program, an employee resource group that limits membership by identity? Sometimes there's like a gay employees group or transgender employees group. Does any of those programs, initiatives, or benefits use race, sex, ethnicity, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, age, any protected characteristic to determine who can participate? If the answer is yes, even partially, you need to look at it, because Coca-Cola thought they were doing the right thing too, and you're opening yourself up to an easy individual lawsuit by everyone excluded. So, defending an EEOC charge is going to cost you at least $75,000 to $250,000, even if you win. And Title VII damages, if you lose, are up to $300,000 in compensatory and punitive damages per claim, depending on your company size. So I want you to lock in, spend a little bit of time now, or risk that $375,000 to $550,000 that's going to go to somebody who's excluded from one of your well-intentioned programs. You don't have to kill your diversity programs. You have to make them legal, and let's talk about some of the steps to do so. Step 1, I want you to inventory your programs. Sit down and list every program, initiative, employee research group, resource group, mentoring track, internship, leadership development program, hiring practice that references any sort of diversity, equity, inclusion, race, gender, ethnicity, or any other protected characteristic. Okay? You don't have to fix it yet, just list them down. Include some things that you might not think of: scholarships, conference scholarships, or sponsorships, internal awards, networking events, special assignments, committee memberships. Most companies have more than they realize. We actually already did this with one client who thought they had 2 DEI programs. When we inventoried, they had 11, including a conference travel fund that prioritized underrepresented employees, a committee appointment process that considered the demographic balance of that committee. These are all things looking at those protected characteristics, okay? So you have to kind of go through everything. And now you got to look at that new legal task. Once you've laid out your inventory, that's week one. I want you to ask yourself one question. Go through that each program. Does participation, selection, or access depend on protected characteristics? If it's open to everyone, regardless of identity, you're probably fine. If it restricts access or gives preference based on race, sex, ethnicity, other protected characteristic, it's at risk. It's not whether the program mentions diversity, it's whether a protected characteristic is a factor in who gets the benefit. An employee resource group called Women in Tech that's open to all employees is actually fine. A leadership retreat that only invites women, well, that's the Coca-Cola problem. If you have an employee research group that requires you be a woman to be in it, it excludes men, that would be a problem, okay? So we need to restructure those ones. You don't necessarily have to eliminate all of them, but there's some restructuring to be done. This is the most important step and the one where you probably need some expert counsel. You don't have to kill the programs. You have to change the selection criteria. So you need to convert those identity-based programs to criteria-based programs. For example, a women's leadership cohort should become a leadership development cohort for employees who haven't had prior management training. All right. If you're promoting new managers and more of your promotions happen to be women now because you're trying to develop those women, etc., you may find that a leadership development program for people who haven't had prior management training will be more women. A minority mentoring program, mentoring for first-generation professionals or employees in their first 2 years. Okay, so I'm not saying don't change the actual people who are part of it, but you want to look at criterion that are going to get you close to your original goal without being discriminatory on the basis of race. If you have race-specific internship opportunities, which I see all the time, instead of recruiting African Americans or some other racial minority, you want to look at recruiting from specific universities or community colleges, HBCUs, HSIs, those sorts of things, institution-based, which is not race-based. Again, where you went to college is not a protected class. Your race is. If you have diversity hiring goals, hire X% minority candidates, you've got to think about instead where you're sourcing. Okay? You got to broaden your sourcing strategy to reach previously untapped candidates, but you cannot discriminate on the basis of race and hire blacks over whites, or whites over blacks for that matter, which has been the case for a long time. ERG, an employee research group with an identity restricted membership, so it needs to be changed to be open to all employees with interest in the topic, allies welcome, something like that. So those are the changes that need to be had. The same people often qualified under the neutral criteria. First generation employees, professionals, employees without management training, graduates from under-resourced schools. You're reaching the same population without using a protected characteristic as the gatekeeper. Then you got to go through and scrub your language. You got to review your employee handbook, job postings, trainings materials, internal communications, websites, and remove language that could be read as race or sex-based conscious decision-making. We're committed to hiring diverse candidates. We're committed to reaching the broadest candidate pool. Our goal is to increase representation of minority, whatever. Our goal is to remove barriers in our hiring process. You got to get rid of the words that are, again, racially, gender, sexually discriminatory. This isn't about being less committed to inclusion. It's about describing your commitment in a legally defensible language. Okay? For every program that survives your audit, you need to document the legitimate business reason. Whether it's retention, skill development, pipeline building, employee engagement, these are the business rationales for all those programs. We want more women in leadership is a demographic rationale, which is highly vulnerable now. We want to develop employees who haven't had management training because they represent our largest untapped internal talent pipeline is a business rationale. It's defensible. If the EEOC sends you a letter or an employee sends you a letter, the first thing they'll ask is, what is the business justification for this program? If your answer depends on demographics, you have a problem. If your answer depends on business outcomes, you at least have a defense. So I want you to look over your program, right? Look over your current programs, inventory them, and then apply that test, step 2, which is this something that is that is exclusionary based on a protected class? Step 3 is restructure those programs. Step 4 is to review all your handbooks and other written materials, right? I want you to go through and take care of each one of those pieces. And the companies that get in trouble are the ones that see this in the news and do nothing. The ones that say that won't happen to us, that's what every employer says right before they get a letter. So start with step 1 today, go list your programs, and then in the description, right down there, there's a link to our free online web app, advisor.peopleprocesses.com, and it has an inventory template and a legal test checklist to give you an idea on where to start on whether these programs are defensible. When you go on there, it takes you to our website. You do have to log in. It's super easy. It's just an email. And then you get access to all of our templates and checklists that have come out through all 72 of our episodes. So including this one where you have that thing. So please go down there, give that a download, and it's really gonna help you out. It's got a program inventory template. It's a really useful thing. So it even has a language scrub guide for your handbook and your job postings and business rationale documentation. So just a really good start. If your DEI programs have gaps, the rest of your HR probably does too. I'll personally do your strategic HR audit, normally $1,000 to $4,000, completely free for the first 10 companies in the US that have more than 10 employees who would like me to. Go to advisor.peopleprocess.com, link in the description, sign up for a free account, and navigate to audits. Select your strategic HR audit and click and enter the code EP72 audit, Echo Papa 72 audit at the checkout. It only works 10 times. It's only going to work on the first 10 companies, and you got to have 10 or more employees. And then we'll do the strategic audit to lay out a priority list for the next 12 months to get all your people processes straight. If you want to check out episode 70, it covers some of our non-compete mess. That's another area that's where the legal landscape has shifted very dramatically. Episode 71 is on leave policy compliance. If your DEI programs need work, your leave policies probably do too. My name is Rhamy Alejeal. This isn't about politics. It's about protecting your organization and your company. The enforcement landscape has changed, and the programs need to catch up that you put in. Get the audit done, restructure what needs restructuring, and document everything. Don't HR alone. Get out there, have a great day, and get your work done. See you soon.